But some of the wonderful stories I can share with you as my life as a monk. I told this to a few people, but not to so many people as I see here today. I love going to big events, especially conferences, because at a conference I can sit in the back somewhere and listen to somebody else give a talk. But now I've got so many wasas, so many rains, so senior. If they recognize me, I'm the one who has to give the talk. But when I went to Vietnam for a conference, I sat in the back. I sat in the back just interested to listen to what was being said. But then another monk came in, who was a Vietnamese monk, and he came and sat next to me. He came and sat next to me because he wanted to practice his English. So he started talking to me. And the conversation went something like this. Hello, where are you from? And I said, I am from Australia. Oh, from Australia, very good. In Australia, do you know a famous monk called Ajahn Brahm? And as a monk, you have to be honest. So I said, yes, I know him. Oh, how is he? Oh, he's very well. What's he like? And I said, he's just like me. So I said, I am Ajahn Brahm. Ah! He shouted. And that happens a number of places. And even when I was visiting UK recently, I was in the town of Sheffield, that's in northern UK. And when I was there, that I was walking from the train station to the venue, the hall we hired to teach a weekend retreat. And as I was walking to the venue, there was a bit of a distraction in the middle of town because the local council were doing repairs of the roads. And there was this guy in this big bulldozer, huge bulldozer, and he opened his window, turned off his engine, and he looked at me. And he said, you are the spitting image of Ajahn Brahm. And this was a guy just at work early in the morning. And I said, yes, I am the spitting image of Ajahn Brahm, because I am Ajahn Brahm. And he turned off his bulldozer engine, and he stopped work. He was the head of this work gang who was supposed to be repairing roads. And he was a Westerner, he was a Yorkshireman, not a Penangy. He came down and stopped all the other workers doing their jobs. You know what for? Photo op. So, all the workers, they weren't really quite clear what's going on, but they had to follow because he was the boss. And so they took a photo of me. Sometimes that happens, you know. But sometimes I also remember, this is the last little story like this, sometimes I remember going on Indonesian Airlines, Garuda Air. Now I like Garuda Air, and I remember once I was trying to get to Indonesia to give a series of talks, and when I got to the airport, the airplane was cancelled. It wasn't just delayed, the flight was cancelled. And so I had to wait till the next day to get to Indonesia. But the Venerable chief monk of in Malaysia at that time, I had to give him a call to say I'm not going to get there in time. And he asked why. And said the flight has been cancelled. Why? And I said, this is Garuda Airlines. Garuda is the name of a bird. And this was the time of bird flu. So I reckon the aircraft has got a disease, and that's why it can't land here in Australia. But when you have a sense of humour, it's amazing just know what one can actually do as a monk. This is about wise rituals. Once when I was in the north of India, north of Malaysia, must have been somewhere around here, I met this Burmese monk, and this Burmese monk told me that he has a mission in his life of going to remote parts of Myanmar and trying to find stupas which were built a long time ago, which had fallen over because the jungle had taken over that area. He wanted to find any relics, Buddha relics. He wanted to try and find them because as many old monuments had been built and many had fallen into disrepair. He wanted to make sure the Buddha relics could be saved. And he said he found one big complex in the jungles. He found it because there was a villager in that area who suddenly became rich. And when he checked it out, the villager said he'd found one of these stupas which had fallen over, and inside he'd managed to find a golden box with lots of jewelry on it. And he thought this must have some relics inside. And he actually poured the relics out onto the ground because it was a box he was interested in. And he took the box away, sold it in some market for the gold and jewels, and suddenly became rich. This is a true story. And so the monk asked him, look, I don't want the gold, but I want the bones. And they must be the bones of important disciples of the Buddha, even Buddha relics themselves. Can you please show me the way in the jungle to that site? It took a lot of persuasion, but eventually that layperson, villager, took him to the site, and that's where this monk found a lot of relics of the Buddha, Mahamoggallana Sariputta. And he collected them, and by this time I already had a good reputation. So he asked me, can I give some of these relics to you to take to Australia? And of course I said, yes. I know the power of relics, I respect them a lot. And so he gave me a whole load of relics in beautiful caskets. Now what do you do? I was flying back to Australia. Many of you have visited Australia. When you go through customs, you have to fill out a form, a yellow card. And again, I'm a monk, I have to be honest. So I said, now how can you put on that form that you're importing Buddha relics into Australia? And so I found as one of the little lines there, are you importing human remains? That's the closest you can get to Buddha relics. So I ticked that box. And when you went to the airport, anything to declare channel, I said yes, for human remains. And when this Australian guy, who was not a Buddhist, what do you mean, human remains? Can I have a look at them? So I took them out. He said, what are these? He's having these beautiful little miniature pagodas. He says, these are relics of the Buddha, Sariputta Moggallana. He died 2,500 years ago. And he looked at me, and then he called the boss, the head of customs in Perth Airport. And the boss came. He said, what's the problem? He said, this guy in the bald head, they didn't really know what monks were. He says he's importing human remains. And the boss said, what type of human remains? Here they are, have a look. And the boss had a look at them. And he rolled his eyes and said, this is way too difficult even for me. And he looked at me and said, get out of here. So I took them all into Australia without them being opened or examined at all. You know, sometimes it's one's confidence and the willingness to go through the rituals of declaring everything, that actually helps you. So that honesty was something I always remember, allowed me to get these relics into Australia. And now they're exhibited in Bodhinyana, the dining room. In Bodhinyana, that's where most people go. And so they have a look in there and they see these beautiful relics. And the interesting thing about those relics is they increase in number. And one of those tales about how the relics increase, there was an Australian lady who was a Buddhist, who lived in a remote town in Western Australia. And when I first went to Western Australia, I worked really hard, doing building. And so the other monk who was with me told me, well, you need to take a rest. So he sent me to this lady's place that had a little kuti in the field behind her to be looked after. And every evening, the only way to look after an English monk is to make sure you have a cup of tea in the evening. So at the evening tea time, she told me the story that how this Thai monk had visited Australia several years ago and had given her 3 Buddha relics. And she was a very good Buddhist. She put them on the shrine and worshipped and looked after them every evening. But, she said, she was a single woman, so she had to get a worker in to do some renovations. It's usually the stuff which her husband would do. But she had no husband, he'd ran away. So she had to get a worker to do it. And the worker, this Australian worker, was a good worker, but just by accident he knocked over the shrine table. And he saw the little bottle with relics in, and he just put the top on and put it back on the shrine. And only later on, when he told her he knocked the shrine casket over, she opened it. There was only 1 relic left. 2 relics had disappeared. And in that period between looking inside the casket and when it was knocked over, she'd vacuumed the carpet. So what she did next, she had a tea strainer. All the stuff from the vacuum cleaner went on the compost pile. And she spent 3 months sifting through the compost pile with a tea strainer, mindfully searching for the 2 relics which had got lost. After 3 months, she found one of them. the other one had totally disappeared. And I think you all know that if you're a good practitioner, you keep precepts, you worship those relics, you're a good person. You don't have to be perfect, but just good. Then sometimes those missing relics return. So when I went to see her to basically for rest, I asked her, has that missing relic returned yet? She said no. I asked her, when was the last time you looked? She said about 3 months ago. Let me see the relic container. She gave me the relic container. I paid my respects to it, and I opened the lid. How many can you see? 1, 2. Hey, it's come back. And she was a very mindful person. Instead of just jumping up and down, she went to the desk in her office and wrote out like a report which she could keep for a long time of how missing relics can return if you look after them. And so that's a wonderful little story. How do they return? Do you know? There are such things as heavenly beings, devas. And those devas, you can't fool them. They know whether you're a good person, a virtuous person. And they're the ones who they look after you. And if you're missing something like a Buddha relic, through no fault of your own, and you go looking for it in the compost pile, the tea strainer for 3 months, they realize you kind of deserve to have them come back. It's the heavenly beings who return that relic for her. Maybe you don't believe me, but I've seen this way too many times. Even one of those caskets of relics I took with me to Singapore. The Singapore Buddhist Fellowship. Do you know them? They're mostly professionals, business people from university. They've got a lot of knowledge. But please excuse me, Buddhist Fellowship members, you don't have as much faith and heart as like the people in Penang. Not then anyway. And so because I was one of their leaders, I wanted to make sure you can teach, but not just theory, but practice, so you can feel the power of the Dhamma. You have confidence based on your experiences. These things actually work. So I gave one of these little caskets to them with relics of Mahamoggallana. And they only had 2 little relics inside. It only took a couple of months that they sent me an email. And the email said, "You wouldn't believe this, Ajahn." Well, of course I would. There are now 3 relics. And no one touched that. You can't get inside the cars, they're like glued shut. And so recently, last February or something, last July, when I passed through Singapore, the Buddhist Fellowship in Singapore have a new premises. And in their new premises, I made sure that those relics, which are still 3, were put in a place of prominence. They asked me, "Why are you concerned about these relics?" So I told the story. These things actually happen. But also, please, where are you? Where's the chief monk of this temple? He was here a minute ago. Please don't be embarrassed. You think that, okay, please do not be embarrassed, because you're a different character. I checked you out when I came here. And the head of the Buddhist Society of Victoria many years ago was a Sri Lankan. And I saw him once when I went to visit, and he had been given some relics by a visiting monk. I said, how are they? And he embarrassingly told me the story. He put them in his cupboard at home. He forgot about them. It was only a year later that he took those relics to the temple. But when he opened the casket, what had happened? They'd all vanished. And he asked, how come they vanished? They were in the cupboard, no one touched them for such a long time. If you look after them and treat them with reverence, they will stay there and even multiply. If you don't look after them, they disappear. And they get taken to Singapore or something. By heavenly beings. We don't have to declare them on they got an immigration in the customs form. Those are some of the stories I gather as a monk. So these aren't just empty rituals. There's some meaning behind them. And so once you understand what those rituals are for, and you respect them, then they provide huge amounts of faith and confidence that these Buddhist teachings and the rituals which have grown around them are really useful. When I came here, when I saw the monk which I'm looking at right now, he did a little forgiveness ritual with me. He has done nothing wrong. He's a very good monk. Look how smiley he is. That tells me, that he's a happy monk, which is a good sign. Why did he have to do a forgiveness ceremony? He hasn't hurt me or done anything wrong at all. But when he asked for forgiveness, as I was taught this ritual, I have to ask forgiveness too of you. So you may have noticed that after you had already done the forgiveness 3 times, I said, yes, I forgive you, and please forgive me as well. It doesn't matter how senior or junior you are. It's wonderful to have that ritual of asking forgiveness. And some of you may not realize how powerful that ritual can be. When I was, again, teaching a meditation retreat for the weekend over in Malacca, when I was teaching over in Malacca, how many of you have been to Malacca? I like it in Malacca, it's a beautiful town. But anyway, when I was there, that advertised the retreat I was teaching, and this lady came along and said, I'm getting married in Malacca on the same weekend that you are giving a retreat. I listened to you, on places like YouTube and stuff, but she said, is there any chance in the world, it's the same day, you're going to be there, can you do a marriage blessing for me? When someone is like that, and they really mean it, it's not just an empty ceremony. I said, okay, I'll find a time. She was willing to change the ceremony to fit me in. So I went along, and she was actually quite a famous Malaysian. She had her own TV show, Sandria Rui. Any of you remember her? Anyway, she's supposed to be this celebrity. And I went to her wedding, gave the blessings and some of the wise words about how to live together, with someone of the other gender, how to be a married couple living in harmony and peace. And later on, she sent me a little report about her marriage to say thank you for how it had really helped keep her with her partner. And she was a very beautiful woman. She had her own TV show. And of course, it was amazing that they could keep together, these two. And she said the most important thing I taught them was the forgiveness ceremony. Every year, on the anniversary of their wedding, I told them to have like an afternoon tea or a dinner together. Nothing expensive, just the two of them. And at the dinner together, just the two, exchange a little gift. And then one of you begins and say, husband, if there's anything which I have done in the past year, anything, okay? Anything I have done in the past year by body, by speech or mind, or anything I didn't do which I should have done, I've asked forgiveness. I'm sorry. You're my husband. I'm trying my best, but I'm not perfect. And then if somebody asks forgiveness, as I was always taught, and it's in the sutras, the Buddha said if somebody asks you forgiveness sincerely, you must always give that forgiveness. Always. And then the husband gives that forgiveness. And then the husband asks his wife, same with me. If there's anything I have done over the last 12 months, by body, by speech, by mind, what things I forgot to do which I should have done, which has irritated, upset you, I sincerely ask your forgiveness too. And the wife has to, yes, I forgive you. And she told me in her letter, that was the most important piece of advice which I gave the couple at the ceremony. That helped so much. Otherwise, those of you who are in a marriage, how many of you can remember the time that your partner did something or said something you wish they hadn't? If it's not forgiven, that can be like a cancer inside of you, destroying the marriage. So fortunately, because they understood that advice and respected it, and made all the difference for their life together. A simple ritual like a forgiveness ceremony once a year worked wonders for their relationship. That's why many of these rituals are not empty. There's something important. Soon we're coming to the ritual of Christmas. We're Buddhists. What's that got to do with us? Ajahn taught me everything. It's a good ritual, like birthdays. Do you receive presents on your birthday? People try to give me presents. They try. I say no. I'm a monk who's got too much. Sometimes, we say being a monk means you live with very little. And honestly, it's beautiful living with very little. I apologize to every one of you when you say, Ajahn Brahm, can I get you something? And I say, no, I don't mean to offend you. So what I do on my birthdays, following the Buddhist tradition, I want to give presents. I had a little youth group over in Perth, and I told the kids, the Australian kids, where I trained as a monk in Thailand, on your birthday, you give presents. And the kids said, oh, that's unfair, we don't want to do that. Then I told them, how many times do you get presents each year? And they said, well, on my birthday, Christmas maybe, twice a year at most. How many friends do you have? About 6 or 7. That means you get presents 7 times a year. When I explained it like that, these materialistic Australian kids, oh yeah, that's a good ritual. And it is a good ritual, because on your birthday you make so many other people happy. So that's what I always do on the birthdays. See if any funds collected, any books I write, can be distributed to people on the birthday. Those rituals of sharing, of giving, mean a lot. As long as it's you're giving not for the sake of amassing more things, in order to show your happiness and your love by giving something to people who really need it. And a lot of times, over at Christmas, one thing we've been doing for years, we tell people if you want to give a Christmas gift to one of the monks, there is little gift vouchers which you can actually buy from the shop, and it's usually one of these kind of department stores which have a place for children's presents. They said a nice size little gift card is about $50. You give them to our monastery, and our monastery will arrange someone to take them to women's refuges. These are women who have fled their homes because of domestic violence, together with their children, and give these little cards to the children. So before Christmas, they can go to the shops and buy a present for themselves, whatever they need, whatever they want, as a present for Christmas, and they choose. That gives me so much happiness. I know instead of putting the money in my Christmas account for myself, well, what do I need? It's given to the little kids who are going through a very hard time, away from home, because their dad's been misbehaving. I thought it was a beautiful way of the ritual of present giving can be enhanced and works. We're doing that for years. And so I always remember to imagine what that must be like for a kid who's run away from home with their mum because of violence, and at least they can go to the shops themselves and buy themselves a little present to celebrate Christmas by, as a gift from the Buddhists. That's how we create harmony in the world. So those are little things which I love about learning about rituals and adjusting them to our modern times. When you do things like that, you can help, you can serve, look after, it creates happiness all around. So what other rituals do you have in your traditions? You know, sometimes when anybody ever needs some help, you always try your best to go and see them and make sure that they're happy and healthy. One of the reasons why, before I came here, I was checking my emails, And there was one of my disciples over in Perth. Her name is Talisha, one of the earliest disciples in Perth. And she's getting so sick now, she's in her 90s. She'll probably be dead by next week. I won't be able to see her. So what am I going to do? I may be meditating a bit longer than normal tonight, Xiaopo. You do that and you do your best to try and contact her. I can't get from Penang to Perth in an aircraft. But have you ever had the experience that somebody is really, really sick, and you think about them, and you know they're sick? This was a story somebody gave to me, was printed in the Melbourne newspaper. They said it was a famous vet, well known, and the vet was having a weekend off work and was driving from the town of Melbourne into the outer districts to have a party with his friends. He wasn't married yet. And halfway on the journey, it's about a 2-hour car ride to the destination, he felt so sad. He started crying for no reason at all. And so it was so intense, he had to park by the side of the freeway and sob. He never usually cried like that. But then, he had no choice. When he got himself together after about half an hour, he carried on to the destination. And when he got to the destination of the friends, they had a message for him. He never had a wife. He had a dog. And almost exactly the time he burst out crying for no reason, his dog had been hit by a car in the city and killed. You can understand how people love some of their pets. Always really mysterious. The reason why it got put in the daily newspaper was that how on earth could he know that? That little dog, it died maybe 100 kilometers away from where he was at that time. Instead he got the message, my dog is dead. And cried. It's the same if it's your mother, father, grandmother, someone you love very much. Have you ever experienced that? At a distance you know there's something wrong. You know that either sick or they died or something's happened. The connections you have, especially with loved ones, are always stronger than you ever imagined. Some time ago in retreats, I used to prove that to my meditators. What I used to do at the end of a retreat, 9-day retreat, I do a metta meditation, loving kindness. And once that loving kindness, that connection between human beings and other animals, beings in your life was established, I said, right now, I want you to just visualize one person, and someone very close to you. It could be like your wife, your kid, your parents, someone really close to you. And imagine the light standing right in front of you. And just with all of the power you've got from this retreat, as you focus on them, give them immense loving kindness. Brother, I really care about you, honestly. I want you to be happy and well. May that problem somehow be solved. May your difficulty in your life, your heart problem or other problems kind of solve themselves. And you do it with a lot of seriousness. And then just almost massage their whole body and their life with your kindness. And then I go on to the next stage of the meditation. But just after I've said that, I look at the clock. I don't tell them yet. At the moment it's 8:50. I remember that. And then we carry on the meditation. When the meditation is finished, I tell them, we did that loving kindness for one of your closest associates in this life at 10 minutes to 9. I want you, after the retreat is finished, to call them, email them, or even better, see them. And just, how are you? It's nice to see you again, brother. And then you sort of say, oh, by the way, on Monday night at 10 minutes to 9, what were you doing? I don't do that exercise anymore, because what happens is in the evening, I get so many phone calls. They say, Ajahn Brahm, it worked. Yeah, they said, at 10 minutes to 9, it's weird, it's strange, I was thinking about you. I don't usually think about you, but 10 minutes to 9 I was. That's why I decided not to do that anymore. I get disturbed. But it works. That's how someone you've grown up with, or someone you love, a cat or a dog, you are in connection with them. And you'll find that you do know when they're in trouble. And that's an important thing for me to prove. I was a theoretical physicist, a scientist. I don't accept these things, and you've got solid proof. And it's there. So some of those rituals of sending loving kindness to people you are close to, people you love, it actually works. They get a little bit better. Some of those problems which kind of become insoluble are much easier to solve when other people are there to help you. It's not psychic stuff, it's real, and you can understand how it happens. These are people you care for. This is how it happens. So I'm sure that many of you have had those experiences. When I asked, they all said yes. Space, distance, don't really matter. It's one of the reasons why those little rituals can work. So all the rituals which we do. What about the death ritual? Is that important? They're dead. Let them go. I told many of my monks, I'm getting old now, when I die, please put me in the mulcher, and then that's where they mulch you all up, and then put me on the garden. And I said, no, they don't respect my wishes at all. Would you do that if I died in the Mahindarama temple this evening?
No.
Would you mulch me? It's much easier, And all the beautiful plants you have over here. They'll be much nicer and tastier. And if there's a fruit tree, like a mango tree, you got any mango trees in the temple here? You have, great. Your mango will be sweeter than ever. And you think, oh, this mango, it came from Ajahn Brahm. It's it.
Please do Ajahn Brahm. I don't know how to answer all the same cover.
We're a long distance away. They all know for sure. So we do those rituals out of respect. But some of those rituals, I think, why do they do it that way? Over in Perth, I've gone to cremations so many times. And one of the things they do, they put the coffin on this conveyor belt, and it goes behind a movable curtain or movable. That's not the way to do it. Sometimes they put it on this stand, and they press a button and it goes down. That's terrible. Going down, what does that mean? If that was me, you'd be sending Ajahn Brahm to hell. Thank you for your respect. So I did suggest once, whenever they make a new crematorium in Perth or in Penang, why don't you have a little table they put the coffin on? And you press the button, and it goes up. It goes up, and there's a little trap door in the ceiling. And dry ice, like this beautiful heavenly smoke, comes out. And it goes into that hole, and the trapdoor closes, and it's disappeared. How would that feel? Like your grandparents have gone to heaven. Oh. I suggested that. I said, no, too expensive. That's crazy. So anyhow, these are how we make use of rituals to make people happy. When I suggested that to our community in Perth, they said, look, it's a nice idea, but have you ever had like a grandparent, you know, honestly, no way they can get to heaven. So pressing the button, which takes them up, doesn't feel honest. So I thought we can make the funeral services really interesting by having two buttons, up and down. And we asked all the relations who come to the funeral to take a vote. We'll get far more people coming to funerals. Okay. Button on the left up, button on the right down. And see what happens. So anyway, it makes it a little bit more interesting. And that's one of the reasons why some rituals, they were good at the beginning, they've lost their hearts. Why do we do them? Marriage is such an important ritual. To put more importance on those rituals. Like, for example, when you get married, do you exchange rings? Now, I started talking about those rings, the little circles you put on your fingers. They're like handcuffs. It's true, isn't it? They're a ring. So, why can we not change that a little bit? To have something more interesting. And once I was doing a marriage ceremony, a ritual, and the one who was doing it with me, because I can't legally marry anybody, so it was that Dennis Shepherd, who used to be our president for many years. And when it got to the exchange of rings, he'd forgotten the rings. How can you have a marriage without rings? We had this wonderful idea. I took one look at the couple. They were both a little bit overweight. So what could I get to exchange? We got two little cupcakes. We gave one to the man, one to the woman. They exchanged cupcakes instead of rings, which was far more meaningful for them. They both loved the cupcakes, and they could eat them, and they always remembered their marriage as being special because their cupcakes were so delicious. Instead of a silly old ring. That's what I think, because I'm a monk. So these are rituals which are important. It's the same way the ritual of when you ordain as a monk. What's part of that ritual? What part do you really, really, really remember? One of the little chants which I have to do when I'm the leader of even a novice ordination. They say, why you become a novice? And it's Sapadukkha Nisavana Nirvana Sachi Kavanataya. It's in Pali. It means for the purpose of getting rid of all dukkha and experiencing nirvana. Even a novice, I chant that for them and I tell them, there's none of my novices here, but I remind them of that. Why have you taken on a brown robe and shaved your hair? Why? That ritual, and it is a ritual. Why? Please remember that for the rest of your life. Is to overcome all suffering. All suffering, not a little bit of suffering. All suffering. And experience and understand Nibbana. What we're doing this for. I know that sometimes people say, oh, it's impossible these days. Maybe in the time of the Buddha, a few people became fully enlightened. But these days, that is totally untrue. There are people who attain Nibbana in this life. There are great monks and nuns alive today. How do I know that? Sometimes, because I lived with Ajahn for so many years, but there's one time which really convinced me, as a scientist, this monk really was enlightened. And that was when he asked me to get something from his room. He had his own personal space where he went to sleep and meditate, and only a novice who looked after him was allowed to go in that personal room. And one day he asked me, can you please go into my room and get something? I forget what it was. But when I went into his room, I was maybe 8 years as a monk by now. And I went into his room for the very first time. I almost burst out crying. By this time, a monk like Ajahn was supported by such wealthy people. Even the Queen of Thailand would go up there to support him. He could have anything he wanted. When I went into his room, it was easy to find what he asked me to get. Because his room where he lived was almost empty. Did he have a mattress to sleep on? No. He had a grass mat. You know those grass mats? You have those in Malaysia. His pillow, a wooden pillow. Did you ever see those in the old days in Malaysia? Because this is Penang, it's not that far away from Thailand. He had a string where he had 1 or 2 pieces of cloth, not a whole wardrobe of robes, like a nice cool weather robe or hot weather robe. Just had so little stuff. There's nothing else in his room. No aircon, no fan. If he'd just asked, said, I need an aircon, he would have got about 10 of them by the next day. And that's how many people love. Look, if I ask for an aircon, how many people come up to offer me one? I'm not Ajahn Chah. But you notice how, when you serve, and when you've got good meditation, it's amazing how much people's faith gets so strong. Anything you ask for, you'll get. He had nothing. When I saw that, it wasn't just a person who could teach the Dharma. It was someone who obviously knew the Dharma and practiced it. And that's what really impressed me. And that's one of the reasons why there are people who are enlightened in this modern age. There's not enough. We need more. That's you. Okay? Promise? That's why what people say when they become a monk or a novice. or a nun. That's an aspiration, that's why. And if you think that, oh, I've got to look after this monastery and that monastery, I've got to serve, how can you serve the best? Many years ago, some of our monks decided, like many other professions, we should have sabbaticals. So I asked for 6 months. Where did I go on my sabbatical? Did I go touring around, going to nice places and seeing what Buddhism was like in the Maldives, or in Koh Samui, or in Langkawi, all these beautiful places? I said, no. I was always a bit rebellious. Think for myself. Do what I thought was a wonderful place to spend 6 months with no responsibility. Well, the cave wasn't built yet. I went to one of the remote huts in Bodhinyana Monastery. I could have gone anywhere in the world. And I said, no, I'm going to go in one of the remote huts. And for 6 months, I never saw another human being. And let alone speaking to them. I had a little box made out of corrugated iron. And one of the monks would bring some food in my bowl and put it in the box. And I would not see them. And I would go to that box about 11 o'clock every morning, take the bowl and eat what was ever in there, wash it, then put it back again for the next day. And I lived for 6 months without seeing another human being or speaking with them. Oh, that's how to spend a sabbatical. Really getting into your meditation. I remember afterwards, the day I came out of meditation, I came out of that 6-month silent retreat, I was wondering what my lay community were thinking about me. I know some of them, they thought 6 months not seeing another human being will drive you mad, crazy. They expected me to have these big eyes, like some crazy hermit, and big hair, and look really weird. They were disappointed I looked just like me. But then I gave the talk at Mahindarama Center that evening. It was packed. And then the people who were there, I remember them saying, this is truthful. They said that talk had amazing power. The first time I had talked in 6 months. Wow. You could feel the energy. Usually maybe if you type it out in a book, kind of ordinary Dhamma talk, where it was coming from was so deep. 6 months of solitude. And there was another monk who wanted to go into my hut afterwards. I finished my retreat, so I moved back into the hut I was in there before. But anyway, the first monk who kind of won the competition to actually go into my retreat hut after I finished 6 months, he told me, he opened the door, and he felt he couldn't go inside. It was too powerful for him. The energy you make and have is huge. And I asked all the people, the usual supporters, what did you think about me just being by myself and just looking after myself and meditating deeply? Were you disappointed I wasn't doing my duties to you? And they said, you were doing the duties to us. As Buddhists, Many of you know me for years, decades. And what's important is you don't just talk the Dhamma, you actually practice it. That's the most important part. And they said they were so inspired. And I taught that to the monks I teach now. If it's a time for you to go on retreat, please go on retreat. All our lay supporters are so proud of you. Inspires them. You may not be able to help them at that time. You actually are helping them. This is one of our duties as monks. To go in your room, don't come out for a week, and get into deep meditations and spread that peace and joy to all your family, all the people you know. They feel it. It's not just an empty ritual, it's a powerful one which keeps Buddhism thriving. Okay, so I'm going to be quiet now. Is that good? So can we have some questions and answers? Did you understand that? Appreciate that? Thank you. So, who's going to ask the first question? Questions and answers are not just an empty ritual. The Buddha said you should listen to Dhamma but also ask questions about it. Two. One without the other doesn't work. Yes. To another. Okay, suppose the lady here wants to ask a question. Who does?
Thank you, Ajahn. I have a question. It's a curiosity question.
Okay.
When you go on sabbatical for 6 months, does it mean that you are going to deep meditation with your higher levels of spiritual? Yes, no.
You got no choice.
It's like what we see in the movies, like when the master goes to some mountains and then they go for long periods of seclusions to get to a higher level.
Yes.
Okay, good. This whole discussion. I hold this. The second thing that I'm curious about is that when you say that when you come out from getting immense power, I also try to imagine that, for example, of a man, of a monk of your power, you might see areas of people in need, and like you say, then you transcend to that place to give your metta kindness or healing powers to them. Yes, no?
Of course.
Okay. And the third question I have as a lay person, when I read your book on the basic meditation, first got to be aware of your present moment, and then you go into silent awareness of the present moment, and then you go into sustained awareness of the present moment until you reach the stage where you are able to not feel your body is like floating. Now I'm wondering, as a layperson, which level can you go to? Or is that the level you mentioned in the book can go far beyond? And when it goes far beyond, where does that take you to?
Okay.
Thank you.
On retreats, I encourage you to put no boundaries on yourself. And sometimes people on retreats do get into jhanas. And that's one of the superhuman states. That happens. So when you get into those deep states, sometimes people ask me, we lay people, we've got wives, we've got jobs. What's that going to do? And I will warn you. I got my first deep meditation when I was a student. I had a girlfriend at the time. It was a long-term girlfriend. And after that, I never understood what was going on. No one explained it to me. But I was not so interested in my girlfriend anymore. We broke up soon after. I never understood why. Now I do. We found a happiness which was way beyond the affection happiness or the sexual happiness. Much more profound, much more stable in the meditation. So I warn you, please know what you're doing. They could break up your marriage unless your partner is wise enough to be able to realize they've got such a much better wife now. Maybe not quite the same as they used to be. If you're kind of, middle-aged or a bit elderly, it doesn't matter so much. But if you're young, there's no way you can go to discos or music festivals or raves. So what do you call it these days when your kids go to a big party and they're dancing and loud music and shouting up and down? What is it called? Clubbing. No way you can go to clubbing anymore. There's nothing in there for you. It's not you doing this because it's a ritual. It's because basically you don't belong there. So there is some dangers there. I used to make the joke, the only danger physically for getting into deep meditation is losing your hair. So I can see a few people who are bald, who aren't monks. I say that because it's basically you understand why there's monastics. And obviously you think, why not me? And you can do it. And that's one of the reasons, honestly, that I just put so much effort and time. And even went through a lot of sort of discrimination against me when I made it sure there's opportunities for females to become monastics. I don't know, why do you do that? If you know what this path leads to, there's no way in the world that I would put a barrier up between half the world's population. Look at the number of people here today. There's more females in this audience than there are males. Why is it you're not permitted to take that full ordination? I can't stand that. It's just morally not right. I'm not saying that every one of you has to, but the opportunity is there if ever you want. And it's wonderful to see how much it's growing. Even recently, I told your chief monk here, I went to Sri Lanka earlier this year. I managed to meet with the Prime Minister, who's a female, a new one, and to tell her that bhikkhunis in Sri Lanka are not recognized. They can't get a passport with the name bhikkhuni so-and-so or ID card. She acted. The Supreme Court in Sri Lanka in June said this is not right. It's against basic human rights. It's against the Sri Lankan constitution. So I think it was in June the 15th, the Supreme Court legislated that a bhikkhuni does exist, can get a passport with a bhikkhuni name on it, ID card with a bhikkhuni name on it. They've got recognition. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. If you've met bhikkhunis, really good practitioners, lovely meditators, good teachers, and they're not allowed to be recognized, that kind of is just not right. That's one of the reasons why there's a little moral issue which I do. And thank you for supporting it. Okay, it's possible. Any other question? In the back? Okay. Who's got the microphone? Usually, whoever is it who has a microphone, they have to run quite fast. I know the person who drove me here today was a marathon runner. Where was he gone? Over there. Could you have the microphone so you can run much faster? Give it, give it to the people who want to ask a question. Yeah.
Good evening, Ajahn Brahm.
Good evening.
My name is Alina Ku. My
Good.
question starts with a story.
Yes.
This year, I decided to be eating healthy, vegetarian diet in conjunction with Vesak Day. It started in April. Midway in 2 weeks,
Yes.
I started crying. I feel uneasy because I keep thinking of eating fried chicken. It gets really bad until I start to cry when I'm driving or at home. I keep thinking of fried chicken, and I start to have guilt. I said that I'm not determined enough in my goal. I'm not committed. So I really feel conflict inside. So I called my good friend. She told me, why don't you go and eat the fried chicken? You'll feel better. And she told me something very important, that actually your life is not flowing because of this vegetarian diet. It's your mind is controlling you from not eating, from keep up with the plan, the commitment. But your heart is telling you that no, it's something you have to eat it. So there's a conflict. And she told me something is that you are not in the flow. The mind is controlling the heart. So I feel very relieved when she told me that, okay, you go and eat fried chicken. Because that night I did go to KFC, eat fried chicken. I really feel good. And the next day, I don't have the urge to eat chicken or meat. So from this episode, I started to, whenever any decision, I started to pause and ask myself, okay, what does my mind want? And does my heart align with it? So there's someone is asking the question, you want to buy the bag, is on discount, okay? And someone is listening. So I don't think I'm crazy. So I have a question is that this third thing that is asking the question and that's listening, what is it? Is it my consciousness or is it my ego? Second question is, should I trust myself? Should I trust my mind? Align with my heart? Should I trust the voice? And third is, can I take a picture with you later after this? Thank you.
What I will do, I will ask my mind and my heart whether I can take a picture with you or not. Now that's an easy one to ask. I honestly don't know why you want to take pictures with me. I'm old, fat. Am I beautiful? Really? Okay, so all of you who ever go to a beauty parlor, don't go to beauty parlor. Go to monastery. That's well, I learned about beauty. But it's a bit dangerous having photographs taken. I was going to tell this story, but I thought I didn't have enough time, so here it comes. On another Garuda flight into Indonesia, I was just sitting down on a window seat down the back somewhere, minding my own business. And then the flight attendant stopped, stared at me, and said, "Are you Ajahn Brahm?" I said, "Last time I looked, yes." And she said, "Oh, I must be one of your most devoted disciples. I've read all of your books. You're a great teacher, and you're on my aircraft." Oh. I never objected because I knew I'd get great service on this aircraft this trip. And later on, after giving me extra food, she shouldn't have done that. But anyway, she gave me extra food. And then she said, after the food service was over, "Can you please come up to the front of the galley?" I said, "What for?" She said, "Just come and see." And all the flight attendants were lined up for photo op. Every one of the flight attendants. And as they were taking their turns to have a photo with me, you could see all of the call bells were going off in the galley. Because this was a flight from Perth, I think, over to Yogyakarta. And all these people, they were going to Indonesia on holiday. They all wanted a beer. And so one of the flight attendants said, "Sorry, no beers right now, you'll have to wait." They never said why, but I think they could understand because they could see this monk having his photograph taken with every flight steward on that flight. And I had to, after that photo op, I had to walk to my seat in the back of the plane. You can imagine the glares I got from all the Australian passengers. "I'm sorry guys, the beer's coming." But anyhow, the other thing about being a vegetarian, I'm not a vegetarian. That's a difficult question. And especially, and I'm going to upset a few people here, was the Buddha a vegetarian? Thank you. You ask your body, you ask your mind. I don't just ask my mind and my heart. I ask my whole body, what do you need? I ask my mind, what do I need? It's the same way when I meditate. Sometimes I ask my mind, how are you? Is there anything you need? And I ask my body, anything which doesn't feel right in your body. When I do a body sweep meditation, you find out there's parts of your body which were unusually tense, or a bit of an ache or a pain or something. You don't need to go to an we get into trouble here, but this is how I feel. You don't need to go an expensive scan to find out how your heart is or how your muscles are. If you practice mindfulness for many years, you can feel that. There was this vet who told me that one of his clients came in with a dog. He said, "My dog is sick." The vet took one look at the dog and said, "It's not sick. Your dog is dead." He said, "No, it's not dead. It's my dog. I know my dog. It's sick. Treat it." And the vet said, "Look, it's dead. D-E-A-D, dead." "No, I don't agree." So the vet, he took a cat out of one of the cages and he put the cat right in front of the dog's nose. And the cat was like cats do. The dog never reacted at all. So he took the cat to the back side of the dog, lifted up the tail, the cat. and the dog never moved. He put the dog on its back and put the cat on the soft belly of the dog. And once again, the cat was trying to scratch the dog, and the dog never reacted. So your dog is dead. And he said, okay, I admit it. My dog never liked cats at all. It must be dead. So the vet took the cat, put it back in the cage, then wrote out the bill, $1,010. I said, that's a lot of money, $1,010. Here's $10 for my time, $1,000 for the cat's care. Sorry. I can't stop it. I ask my mind, my body, can I tell that joke? And I got 2 ticks, so that's why I can. Have we got time for another question?
Thank you, Ajahn, for the talk. My question is related to the previous question about the vegetarian and non-vegetarian food. So I have an idea which is like you to comment about it regarding the human with the relationship with the nature, beings, the plants, animal. As long as human form a good relationship, aspect, with the nature, it will help. In this case, like for the certain religion, they will pray before the meal. The meal will be sun or meat. They pray, they go for the food that based on the day. For certain religion, maybe the slaughterhouse, they will pray and they understand with the animal in peace and form a good relationship with the animal, and they know that the purpose of the slaughterhouse is for certain relationship with another animal or human. So there's an understanding that in any human, as long as with the nature, the relationship is good, what they consume on the plate, it will still remain good. Grateful, respect, feeling good about the forming both symbiosis relationship to maintain the equilibrium energy of both sides. Whatever you consume will remain the middle part. You are not doing any extreme. That's what. Can you comment about it?
Yes, it's an interesting statement. And there's one animal which in Australia, which sometimes people say, should be more popular than cow or pig, and that's kangaroo. And because there's many kangaroos in Australia, and sometimes too many. People say we should have a cow every so often. And so because of that, once somebody offered me kangaroo meat, and because I live with kangaroos, I just couldn't do that. I asked my heart to get so close to the kangaroos in Bodhinyana Monastery, even though it's much healthier than any other type of meat. I just couldn't do it. I think if I lived with cows, or with pigs, or with chickens, I don't think I could ever eat one, honestly. But we try our best, to be harmless in this world, but sometimes it just cannot be done. That's one of those deep questions which I haven't found the best answer for, if being honest. Yes? Yes?
And I just want to share in Malaysia with that in KL, there's actually the first Bikini training center in Nursery, which is building and need funding. I don't know if you all know Arya Vihara. And I don't know how I can help because I always come to retreat alone. I don't have a bunch of friends with Buddhism. I'm doing this on my own, so I can't share in my group. So I want to see if anything I can do, maybe through your power and all these people here that can help support. It's the first Malaysia center that is for Bikuni, and last year they have the Malaysian first cinema for Bikuni. So
Excellent. So what to do? So who is the head bhikkhuni there?
it's Arya Sumangala.
Oh yes.
The place is called Arya Vihara.
So please, can we invite her to come to Penang to give a talk?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
If you see the people,
Has actually been to Penang, came to Mahindarama in the middle of this year. So she had a Brahmavamso.
okay, she did already.
Support, yes, it's already online.
Okay, support is already online. Okay, so how do you know where to support? What's the email address, Ollie?
Yes, it's already on the online. You just Google Arya Sumangala and
It's not for me. I have supported. I'm almost alone, so I just thought here there's so many people, and of what Ajahn Brahm is doing, maybe you all can.
Yes. So please, if anybody wishes to, please get online and give a donation to that. At the moment, I don't like hawking for donations, but there's also, I've been telling this to Venerable, no, not Venerable, Venerable one day. I'm predicting the future, Chalpo. Whenever I go overseas and anybody makes donations, I always let people know where to make those donations. For the moment, there is a Bhikkhuni monastery over in Oxford, and it's very difficult for them to pay off their debt for purchasing that beautiful property. And it was so difficult that they had to get a loan. And they got the loan from this wonderful monk called Ajahn Brahm. I taught my committee into loaning the money to the Anukampa Bhikkhuni project. And I'm also, it's a bit sus, I must admit, because I'm also the chief trustee of the Anukampa Bhikkhuni project. So I've already mentioned to Chalpa that any donations which are given from me, I don't receive them myself. I say, this year, can you please send them to Anukampa Bhikkhuni projects?
Allow me to say this difference. We have teachers to fulfill the bank memorative for this retreat. We are selling it and all their donations, all funds raised will go towards the Kampa Bhikkhuni project. Okay.
I went to visit her over in England just, I think it was in October, November, a teacher retreat over there, and she is struggling. So honestly, I just promised myself to give that support. For the one here in Malaysia, maybe the next time I come over to Penang, we can focus on that. If you focus on too much, sometimes people get divided. And you're not billionaires. I come here to teach, not to raise money. But may I also say another answer to that question about vegetarianism? I remember, and I ask all strict vegetarians to remember this story. When I was still a lay person, I went to my girlfriend's house. She was cooking a dinner for me. And I don't know how she could forget that I was a vegetarian. And she cooked me a meal with meat in it. And this is Ajahn Brahm in his stupid time. I got upset at her and I refused to eat that meal. And that was the end of that relationship. That was not the relationship I was talking earlier, another one. I was a young man, okay? And so because of that, I felt so sorry about that. That's not what I should have done. The meal was already cooked, and she put so much effort and energy into trying to make it a delicious meal, and I even refused to eat it. If I had that time again, I would have eaten that meal with the meat in it and said to her afterwards, "So please next time, I am a vegetarian. I love animals, but I even love my girlfriend too." And honor her by eating meat even though I'm a vegetarian. Does that make sense to you? A few things I did which were really wrong and selfish. I would never do that again. Okay, next question. Yeah. Okay. It's tired. The poor microphone is tired. Oh,
Just click up.
okay, great. Yes.
Ajahn, I have this question. Like in our daily life, in the workplace, or even in a Buddhist community, when we serve in a Buddhist community, we meet up with different type of people. And I always try to develop that wholesome thought of the other party, right? I mean, the other people. Even though I know, but to some extent, some people, because we haven't enlightened and we still have some unwholesome act, those are things. So how do I balance out? Is it I just keep thinking that this person behave like this because this, or I should just accept that this person is really have great jealousy?
How to actually to deal with that is understanding people change. Because they change, it's almost impossible to judge them. It was a hard teaching for me to get across to my students. But on one retreat which I taught over in China Grove, it just so happened that the usual woman who would cook the meals for us, Bianca de Boer, and her partner, Ron Battersby, had just been told he had a leukemia. And she said, I must look after my partner more than you. So we had no cook for one of our retreats. I found a replacement, and his name was Carl. He was an amazing cook. He worked really hard, and all the people on the retreat appreciated his hard work. And at the end of the retreat, when we give gratitude and thanks to all the people who helped make this retreat possible, they wanted to give a big thank you to Carl. He wasn't being paid, and the retreats were always free. And so they asked, where's Carl gone? And that's what I told them. Carl has gone back to jail. He was on work release from prison. Why was he in prison? For rape. Not one, but a couple of them. You could see everybody being even more quiet than you are now. And I could read their minds easily. They were thinking, why did Ajahn Brahm allow a rapist to come and be with us during our 9-day retreat? And I said, he was a rapist. He's not a rapist anymore. He's changed. Of course, I knew him very well because I used to teach in jail. That man was on drugs. He did that crime. He regrets it enormously. He's done his time in jail. He's coming to the end of his sentence now. And because the prison officers and wardens and governors of the prison respect us, they said they're very happy to give him that trust so he can come every day to Jhana Grove Retreat Center to cook the meals. He never does anything bad anymore. That was a long time ago. Please understand that people do change. A good example of that was Angulimala. He was a serial killer. Would you be happy with me if I said there was a serial killer on this retreat? But Angulimala had changed. He became an arahat, fully enlightened. So please allow people to change. Drugs and alcohol make people do things which they regret themselves. They're basically out of control, no mindfulness. Carl still comes to Bodhinyana Monastery. He was there a couple of weeks ago to do some landscaping work. Very happy that he comes. Totally safe and totally devoted because we were the first people who trusted him. So he could trust himself. He's now married. He's got this lovely dog he brings along with him just when he comes to help work at Bodhinyana Monastery. It's almost impossible to judge people because they change. That's what they're supposed to do. You learn from mistakes. When somebody trusts you, can you imagine how Carl befriended me? I was one of the first people to trust him. He never let me down. Does that answer the question for you?
Yes. One more question related to this. What if the person hasn't changed? So, I mean, how do I work with that kind of person? Because we just know that this person is full of jealousy and just think bad things of whatever me or other people have done. Yeah.
Well, send him to Bodhinyana Monastery. Sponsor a retreat for him, and I'll figure it out.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Sorry? Mahindarama is nearer, yeah. Send it to Mahindarama. Am I getting into trouble with the chief priest? Chief nun? Okay, yeah. Give people an opportunity to change their bad habits. Sometimes that's all they need, the opportunity. And they jump at that. It's now 10 to 10. If there's no other questions, we can do a sum up and then any other questions? No questions? Yeah. Okay. Doing a summary up.
In that case, we would like to thank Mahindarama. Oh, sorry. Question. I think it's okay. We would like to thank Mahindarama, Chairman, Brother Chitong, Sister Cecilia, who have to get things organized here, and Brother Peter and the PDA committee for arranging the bus to transport all of you here to listen to the Dhamma. And please go back to the temple. Don't go makan-makan, yeah?
I don't know much Malay, but I know what that means.
Yeah. And then please you have to set up the stools at the back on your way. Thank you very much.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Excellent.